Check it out.
Recording.
Got it. We're recording. Thoughts?
First of all, just thought it was a great conversation with them. It's always like whenever you can put, a vision for something that you might potentially build or create in front of users and customers, and just listen to the stories that they share about like how these potential ideas might like come into their world, change the way that they have workflows with their own customers, all that kind of stuff. I feel like it just makes me more excited to work on it.
Great. Mark, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's good to hear all their kind of. It's a lot, but it was super interesting to hear kind of all their, I don't know, all the things they struggle with.
Totally.
What were some?
What's coming up?
Let's flesh it out. Yeah, what comes up? Mark, did we lose you?
Yeah. No, sorry. A lot of it is just the social aspect, right?
I mean, I think a huge portion of creating a new community is social interaction, right? And it's basically like just the question of like the way that we communicate, the way that we show progress in our communication, and that we're like on top of things is kind of the way that we like basically build trust.
I'm helping out with a company that's doing something in the real estate space around property management, and they've got like 400 residents right now, and a lot of it is it's the communication of like, it's the acknowledgement of a problem, and then like it's really just the acknowledgement is the first step, but seeing that there's progress or some way for them to see that there's progress or something's being done or there's going to be a solution in a time frame. A lot of it is like, if you look at this, it kind of fits the similar mold of like, it's a ticketing system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had to basically,
but you don't want it to feel like our traditional ticketing system.
Yeah.
But functionally, it needs to work that way.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with much of the GovTech work that I've done with the U.S. federal government, where it's basically like the biggest challenges that folks have in navigating the system, and it's just a question of where am I supposed, like which system am I supposed to be in? Do I understand what stage I am in? Honestly, with the U.S. government, it's like, do I understand what stage of what form I'm in, and like which form am I next going onto? And who's looking? Is someone looking at that form, or did they forget it and lose it in like this paper filing system over here? But it's very much that. As long as you can kind of like acknowledge that you've received a communication and be very clear about like current stage and what comes next, and any understanding we have about when that might be and why it works this way, is like the biggest gift that you can give to people. It's all about clarity.
Yeah, I was, some of my reactions, I was pleasantly surprised at how excited they were about it, and that the things that we did communicate actually felt on point. So that felt good. It was impressive to me how much the query part of it seemed to be like we need to integrate that with everything. So all of the workflows need to be around the interaction. So bringing the query interface into the news, or at least something there. It also occurred to me that we need some way of saying that something that starts as a query then becomes a broadcast communication, right? So like if somebody says, hey, my power is out, you then need some way of saying, yes, we think this is related to this other issue. We're going to give updates in this other thread, but then tie it back together in some way so that there's a way that they are giving broadcast communications a- but the resident who reported it as a power issue then sort of knows to sort of either get the update in the query that they started, or to get update, or to sort of go to this other thread to get those updates. So I thought that was a really interesting sort of how the social aspect of it pulls together everything, and even the maps, right? Like, what's the difference between a query versus a rating on a restaurant, and when and how do you sort of relate those two concepts or keep them separate? I think was interesting.
I started reading this book that I'm going to have to send on to you guys because I think you'll just find it fascinating. It's like entirely relevant to what we're doing here. But the Brookings Institution about a year and a half ago put out a book called A New City OS, which is basically an overview of the current state of affairs of a lot of GovTech work in small to mid-sized cities in the U.S. And a vision for what a new operating system, both like technology and kind of like the techno-social operating system, like how people behave and interact and all that kind of stuff, might look like. And like what pops, even about a third of the way through it, coming back from vacation here. And one of the things that pops is just like the centrality of mapping as a critical interface for understanding city. And of course, like this probably makes a lot of obvious sense. And certainly we were talking about mapping from the get-go here. But like, it is like, it becomes a critical tool for us, I think.
Yep. Oh, great. What should we think about in terms of next steps?
Well, I mean, like certainly one thing to think about just at this current level of trying to bring vision to concreteness, like via sketches and descriptions, so that we can collect more fine feedback and more fine knowledge about our customer here in Nkwashi, right? Like, there's a whole level of kind of sketch work that we could do at on the administrator tool side that honestly, like, I think probably like moves forward our effort at at a really good like balance of like the amount of work that we put in and the amount of learning that we get back is super significant. Yeah. So that's great. And then
I was curious. Go on.
And then I think on a lot of these tools here, a lot of the question is basically like, I don't know, it's not so much like design and redesign. It's like a little bit of like resketch, but it's a lot more like prioritization and like discussing where one starts and why one starts that way, which is a little bit more like kind of like development philosophy, I think, as much as anything else.
Yep.
And then the last thing that's sort of on my mind is like, I think our next sprint in terms of back and forth with the team at Nkwashi, like, we probably get the best leverage out of that via, this kind of like next run on administrator tools. But what I would love is to start a cadence of like some some other interaction channel with them, like whether it's like, hey, we're just all constantly building on the same document here, or it's like, how do we turn interactions into like quick 5-minute back and forth as opposed to like every 2-week 90-minute debriefs and stuff like that. Yeah,
totally agree. And it made me wonder whether we can get them in a Slack channel, and if that's a sort of a way to do it. I almost pushed for that at the end of the interaction and just sort of felt like I didn't want to push too.
We did everything.
Want to push too hard.
Yeah.
Mark, other things you want to add there in terms of next steps?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the notes here and trying to think of the. I think, just thinking about it from the engineering perspective, like I think it's really just what can be built in the quickest amount of time that can be shipped to something that they can use or something that they can find utility in.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to build something and then not have them use it because it's not complete, so they don't feel comfortable. So like, what can we make them feel comfortable with?
Yeah.
Using.
Yeah.
The thing that's constantly bouncing in my head is basically like, what's the thing that's complete that they would get utility out of and would use, also kind of balanced with what's the thing that's complete that would actually like make financial difference, right? Like actually helps them either like hold on to a resident and like make sure that they're like staying live on their current payment plan, or increase uptick in terms of new residential or plot sales. I think both of those two are things like I'm not sure that we need to solve that second thing that I'm talking about as the first solution. We could make another decision about where you start, where it's basically like, no, actually, like this is just going to be really useful and frequently used. So start there. But playing between those two things is kind of a constant back and forth here, I think.
Yeah. Mark, one of the things that came to mind was that tool that you and Rami built for interacting with people over text message and having sort of like a back end thing there.
Yeah.
And I wondered whether that has any utility, whether there are any parallels there, and if that is something that still lives, or if that's sort of like completely.
It's pretty dead at this point, but I mean, happy to try to boot it back up. I haven't looked at the code base in a while, but we got a lot of learnings out of it. There's actually other services that have done something similar. I don't know if it'd be worth looking at those. I mean, the bigger issue is like I don't think any of them are going to work by default with the telecom stuff and in the Saga. So I think it's going to be a little bit for the commercial services. But if we're looking at it from like an intercom standpoint, or what's the other one? I have to get the other one. There's another one that's actually cheaper than intercom. That's actually a little bit better. Yeah, you could possibly build something similar to one of those where you said, look, this is within the confines of not SMS, but like some type of either email or web interface, communicate with the team there. I think it'd still be, ours is very specifically to SMS, and I'm not sure that's going to work.
Right.
But the idea, the fundamental, just the communication tool, I think something similar to that. I just got to think about what's the communications channel.
Yeah.
Is it just, is it getting them to install something on their phone and then that becomes a private chat line with the team? Or is it something like they go to the website and they register? Or is it email?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have, switching gears a little bit, do you have recommendations on apps that would do sort of like clickable prototypes? Like I think Envision does something like that.
I haven't worked with Envision in a while, but I think they're still the big one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Others that you're aware of that we should look at?
Envision's the one that I know there's others. So I don't know them off the top of my head.
There was something.
Envision's the major one.
Envision has basically become kind of like the DevOps tool of design.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Balsamiq doesn't do prototypes.
No. My understanding, Balsamiq's they haven't really done much with their product in a long time.
Okay.
I'll look around to see if I can find any others. I know there's some other ones. I haven't delved into this area in a while.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it for today. Mark, I would love to touch base with you at some point, maybe later today. Do you have like 15, 20 minutes?
Let me look at my calendar.
Your time
not too bad. I've got something from 11 your time to noon, and then after that, I'm fairly free.
Okay.
So afternoon, basically.
Yeah.
You're right. For you, anytime afternoon for you. So it works for me.
Yeah. Maybe I'll give you a call like 12:30.
That works. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 3:30 your time?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I'll put it on my calendar.
All right. Talk with you.
Cool. Okay. See you guys.
Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. See ya.